Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good afternoon. It is such a pleasure to see all these diverse faces so equitably included today. May it continue no matter what. I'm Harold Bailey, Chair of Team Westport, and on behalf of the town of Westport and the First Select Woman, and of course Team Westport, again, I want to welcome everyone here and really thank you for coming out in light of the pending inclement weather. I want to welcome you to our 19th annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. event here in the Westport Weston area. It was begun by the Westport Western Interfaith Clergy Association some 19 years ago, and is today sponsored by that group as well as the Westport Library, the Westport Playhouse, and Team Westport. Now, Team Westport's mission, which, wonderful, that's our symbol up there. Team Westport's mission is to make Westport increasingly welcoming for all people who live here, work, study, visit, or just plain pass through our town. If you look at Team's logo, each of the horizontal strands represents communities within our town. And when you take those horizontal strands and shift them 90 degrees and put them against each other, what you see is the literal fabric of our town and the interconnection we all have with each community and with each other. In this regard, when we talk about initiatives or events like this one to promote the mutual respect, understanding, and engagement among all of us, we do it not for those people, but for each and every one of us. That is our North Star, and as we move forward through change over the coming days, it is most certainly a North Star on which we should stay focused. That extends to our children, and that's why Team joins the First Select Woman in committing our endorsement of and support for the No Place for Hate initiative in each of the 8 Westport schools. So, and I have to mention, of course, today's event is one which features a conversation with the Empress of Enchantment, and that'll be forthcoming soon. But going back to speaking of North Stars, we are honored to have as a guest someone who we could not be more fortunate for having led us through the past 8 years and the next 4 as our representative in Congress, in the Senate, Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm here again. Many of you were here last weekend for the wonderful event in this library. Thank you for coming again. Thank you to all of you, the Westport Library, my favorite library in the whole state of Connecticut. And to Team Westport, to the Westport Weston Clergy Association, of course, the Westport Playhouse, for making possible, again, this Martin Luther King celebration. And I apologize. I am unable to say I'm going to be on a train in just a little while to Washington, D.C. Believe me, I would rather be here than Washington, D.C. And I'm not even the warm-up act. The real attraction is Shonda Rhimes and Trey Ellis. I'm so grateful to them for being here. Thank you to you for being here today. I'm here with a very simple message. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being what Martin Luther King would call foot soldiers for justice. We're going to need you to keep hope alive in these next 4 years and to continue the great work that this community does. Westport is a beacon of activism and hope. And thank you for your continued determination to keep that fight going. Martin Luther King was a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, but he was a fighter, and we are going to need to fight over these coming years, and I know you will be there. Thank you for all you do. Thanks for your courage and strength. I look forward to be back maybe next weekend, who knows? Thank you all. Take care.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Wiederhorn, and I represent the Weston Clergy Association. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "A genuine leader is not a seeker of consensus, but a molder of consensus." I want to just say on behalf of all of us, we are blessed to have a genuine leader in Senator Blumenthal, and we thank him for representing us in the state of Connecticut. "60 years ago, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marched in Selma, Alabama, with Martin Luther King Jr. side by side. And as we heard last year from Clarence Jones, he said that he felt like his legs were praying. And I think that's a reminder to all of us in the faith community that you don't have to be in a church or a mosque or a temple or a synagogue to pray, and that by fighting for social justice, that can be a spiritual experience as well. On behalf of our Interfaith Clergy Association, we also would like to endorse and support the ADL's No Place for Hate program in our Westport schools, and we are thrilled to be partners moving forward on this project as well. At this time, it is my honor to introduce the artistic director of the Westport Country Playhouse, Mark Shanahan.
Thank you. What an honor it is to be here representing the Playhouse today. We're just right up the road. I walked down the hill on this snowy afternoon and thought about what a great connection between the library and the Playhouse there is. Two organizations which are committed to telling stories and keeping stories alive. We know for a fact that stories help exercise empathy, and empathy is a muscle, and the telling of stories helps us actually keep stories alive. We're so proud to help participate in organizing this event and being here for you to support this event today. And we also are so proud to also support the No Place for Hate initiative designed to work in schools and keep this community strong in the face of bias and deal with issues of harassment. We're so proud of so many ways in which this community comes together. If you are still interested, tomorrow night we continue the celebration of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's story alive at the Playhouse with a screening of King in the Wilderness, which is executive produced by our great friend Trey Ellis, who will be on hand to have a discussion. The event is free, but we ask you to go on our website and reserve your place, because I hope there is as great a turnout tomorrow night as I see right here. Absolutely. The story we do celebrate in the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King is a story that actually is rooted in our past, but keeps us urgently thinking about this moment in the present and gives us great hope for the future. to help us continue that celebration. It's a pleasure to welcome to the stage a fantastic talent who was with you last year, and I know you'll love him today. Please welcome Christian Cervantes. Thank you.
Hang on to the world as it spins around. Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep your self-respect, your manly pride. Get yourself in gear. Keep your stride. Never mind your fear. 'Cause better days will soon be here. And take it from me, someday we'll all be free. If you just wait and see, someday we'll all be free. Yeah, oh, 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 oh. If you keep on holding on, there's no way you can go wrong. Keep on walking tall. Keep your head up high. Don't let your feelings get inside it. You ought to sing your greatest song. And we'll keep going on. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. And I'm telling you, just wait and see, someday we'll all be free. And take it from me, someday you'll see we'll all be free. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yes, take it from me, someday we'll all be free. Yeah.
Incredible. Wow. Christian Cervantes, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, friends, and welcome. My name is Bill Harmer, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Westport Library. On behalf of our staff, our Board of Trustees, and all the volunteers at our library, we are truly blessed to have the privilege of hosting this event in such an inspirational space. And I want to genuinely thank each and every one of you for being here today. We are especially grateful to our friends from Bridgeport who have joined us. Your presence enriches this gathering and reminds us of the power of community. I do want to send a very special note of gratitude to our good friends, Walter and Valita Luckett, who are here today. If they could stand, please, really quick. Walt and Valita, thank you for being such good friends and supporters of the library, and we truly value our partnership, and we're looking forward to doing more together, so thank you so much. As Harold Bailey said, this year marks the 19th annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here in Westport, a day in which we reconnect to the ideals and vision that Dr. King inspired for our country. In today's world where division and polarization can sometimes feel overwhelming, public spaces like this library play a vital role in fostering unity, dialogue, and understanding. These democratic spaces remind us, despite our differences, we share a common value and aspirations that bring us together as communities. So let's not forget that. Thank you for coming out on a snowy day and being a part of this. We are proud to once again co-sponsor this event with our partners at the Westport Country Playhouse, Team Westport, the Walter and Valita Luckett Foundation, and the Westport Weston Clergy Association. Today, we reflect on Dr. King's contributions and pay tribute to his legacy of working toward a more equitable, just, and peaceful society, where the rich diversity of individuals and community is revered and celebrated. These values are ones that in Westport that we strive towards every day through our shared commitment to building and nurturing a more inclusive environment where every person has an opportunity to thrive. This commitment starts with our youth, as exemplified by the adoption of the No Place for Hate initiative in our public schools and community, which sends a clear message that discrimination and hate have no place in our schools, and they certainly have no place in our community. And all of this is part of an effort to build a nurturing and more inclusive environment where every person is empowered to succeed. It is my honor this afternoon to introduce our keynote speaker, award-winning television producer, writer, and Westport resident, Shonda Rhimes. You don't need to hear it from me, but Shonda Rhimes is a visionary storyteller whose groundbreaking work has redefined the television landscape, both on screen and behind the scenes, paving the way for a new generation of writers, producers, and directors. As the founder and CEO of the global company Shondaland, she is the first woman to create 3 television dramas, Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, and Scandal, that have achieved a 100-episode milestone. Shonda is the creative force behind a number of other projects, including but not limited to Bridgerton, Queen Charlotte, and the Netflix documentary Black Barbie, which we had the privilege of screening here last year. Her numerous awards and accolades include Television Academy of Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame inductee, Golden Globe and Peabody Award winner, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Directors, Writers, and Producers Guilds of America. Throughout her prolific career, Shonda has emphasized that her goal is not just to diversify television and media, but to normalize authentic representation by showcasing characters and stories that truly mirror the diverse world we live in. Shonda is joined in conversation today by another esteemed Westporter, Emmy and Peabody Award winner, American Book Award-winning novelist, playwright, essayist, and Professor Trey Ellis. From his groundbreaking essay, The New Black Aesthetic, to his numerous novels, screenplays, and work on films such as the documentary on HBO, King in the Wilderness, Trey's thoughtful body of work has provided a powerful lens through which to examine the intersection of race, identity, and American culture. Both of our notable guests today use their talent and creative platforms to share stories, challenge stereotypes, and speak by creating critical conversations that reflect the very ideals that Dr. King championed. So please join me in welcoming Shonda Rhimes and Trey Ellis.
Well, thank you all for coming out. This means a lot to me. It's my hometown of many years, and you're relatively new here. We are so thrilled to have you here. I think to have a national treasure and a local hero here with us is just, it's incredible.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You know, part of what's so great about this day and part of what makes me love Westport so much is that we have an event like this and you come and I see all of these people who are here, you know, for the cause of what Martin Luther King speaks to. And that's amazing to me. That's what really makes this community special.
Great. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit. I'm gonna ask you some questions, and then we have some questions from some youth that have joined us at the end. So sit back and let's talk. But I want to talk first about this. What does this day mean to you in the light of what's happening in this world?
Let's start with
easy.
Start with an easy question. You know, this day is a reminder, I think, for me, that the struggle is not over by any stretch of the imagination, that all the work that Dr. King started is not done. We've come so far, and it's really beautiful to see how far we've come, but moments like this always remind you that it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And while we will get through all of this, it's just a reminder that you have to be more vigilant.
Yeah, he had it a lot worse than we have it.
Oh, well, obviously, yes.
Right. So in terms of, and growing up, did your relationship to King, did it morph and like how you were raised? Like how did it fit into your growth as an artist, this idea of nonviolence and King's message?
Well, you know, it's interesting because my parents made sure that it was just a part of the conversation of our household. My dad likes to quote lots of people, and one of the people he would quote is Martin Luther King at the table. But what was really clear to me is it wasn't a lesson that we learned on Martin Luther King Day. Obviously, there wasn't even a holiday back then yet?
No.
It wasn't a lesson that we learned, but it was something that was part of our household. It was part of our history. You know, it was part of who my parents were, and so it was part of who my family was.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I'm older, and, you know, it was certainly part of my growing up as well. I was born in D.C. During the March on Washington. My dad was at the March on Washington, and then I said, "Did you see the King speech?" He said, "I was getting too crowded." He left before. It was like,
Wow. Talk about a missed opportunity.
No, it's amazing. He was at some other talk, and Malcolm X came after he left. It's like, great, he missed them all. So you talk a lot about, your growth as an artist and how really as a trailblazer. Can we go to like how you began, and then when you get in the door, how did you keep the door open?
Oh, wow. I always have a hard time talking about how I began, because at this point I don't even really know. I was always writing. I've been writing since I was a child, and writing stories and asking my parents to type them up, making things up. I've always wanted to do something with words, and I didn't know that it was television at first. I really wanted to be Toni Morrison. You can't be Toni Morrison because Toni Morrison's Toni Morrison. But when I went out to LA and I sort of discovered television writing and how much I enjoyed it, it was really about finding a place where my voice could be heard. I didn't realize when I started that there were no Black female showrunners or show creators in a long time. I didn't realize what I was up against, and I think that helped me a lot. It shielded me a lot, because I simply believed that it was possible, and I worked really hard to make it possible. So for me, the doors that were opened were sometimes very few, but I found a door to go in, and I stayed there. And for me, part of being successful, part of what we do as a company at Shondaland is we work to make sure that, if I was the first in some degree, I certainly am not going to be the last. So the beauty of television is right now that the success that we had with Grey's and then Scandal really opened the door for all of these other shows and all these other showrunners. Issa Rae, a lot of other people who came after really have a path now for themselves. And we're also trying really hard at our company to make sure that that happens behind the scenes too. We're trying to train line producers, we're trying to train crew members of color so that they have those opportunities. When we went to England, there were no crew members of color. And so we created a program where we trained them and then hired them so that there was a pipeline there. And we're hoping to keep that going.
Thank you. Let's talk about like the impact you've had on the UK is incredible. Besides your order of your commander of the British Empire degree, but it's because of how much it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? That you've brought to this. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I got to open the London Stock Exchange because of it, which was amazing. But really, being named a commander of the British Empire, which my family makes fun of all the time because I like to mention it a lot. But part of that was because of the economic impact we'd had on the industry, and not just on the television industry, but when you bring that many people in and you create that sort of world, we built a backlot. We have a whole town so that in a lot of ways, a lot of people who didn't have jobs now because of that. And that was exciting to me to know that we were doing it. I don't think I came in thinking that way. I came in knowing I wanted to make the show and really loving it. But it was exciting to discover that we were also making such a profound impact on the British economy.
And what about the profound impact on the representation, the choice of representation? Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said I'm never going to make a show that I can't see myself in. And when we started talking about Bridgerton, that was really important. One of the things, I loved the books and I thought they were wonderful, but one of the things about the books was, even though they were all white Regency ladies, I could see myself in those characters, the way she told the story. And that made me think, we should do this, and we should do it in a way that really feels like we're including everybody. And it was great because then I got the research on Queen Charlotte and was able to sort of extrapolate that into the stories that we wanted to tell and create sort of a society, which we explain how it comes to be in Queen Charlotte, the show. But it was exciting to really get to explore that and to bring that in. And I know that we put a lot of people were sort of, what's the word? Unhappy that we were telling the stories in that way. But to me, what it did was it opened up a world of possibility. And it opened up a way to tell stories and have heroines and heroes who were people that we all wanted to know. They weren't just one thing. When you watch Pride and Prejudice, as brilliant as it is, it does feel like they're over there and we're over here. I wanted it to feel, like we're all included.
Yeah, I think what's so revolutionary about that storytelling is that it's reached such popular heights that was it the king that gave you the painting of Queen Charlotte? Didn't they give you a painting of
no, but if the king wants to give me a painting of Queen Charlotte, I absolutely accept it.
Oh, it's just
Yeah.
Well, Charles, it's Charles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'll put in a good word.
Put in a good word for me, yeah.
So, so at the point was there ever a point in the, well, let's say talk about casting of that. From the beginning, did you have this idea about casting from the beginning? Was there ever a pushback from Netflix at this point, or what?
No, and you know what's interesting? I say this all the time because I think it's really important. Even when we were casting Grey's Anatomy, and doing the show in a way in which we had three heads of hospital who are all black doctors. And it was sort of, somebody told me it was the first time on television that you saw 3 black people together in a scene with no white people, and it wasn't a comedy. Which was, it's shocking, but it was true. But even then, nobody at ABC said, we don't want you doing this. You can't have this many people of color, because generally there was always only one, and all they ever talked about was being a person of color. They never said it couldn't do that. When we did Scandal, they never said you can't have a black female lead. When we did Bridgerton, it never occurred to anybody, I don't think, to say that we couldn't do that. We'd already proven with Grey's and with Scandal and with How to Get Away with Murder that there's an economic model there. The shows that have more diversity make more money. Like, you hit people's bottom line right there. And once that model was proven, I don't think anybody was gonna tell us not to do it.
Did that ever surprise you? Do you ever look up and say, oh my God, I can actually do whatever I want?
I do sometimes think that, and I think it's a dangerous thing to think, you know? And we always talk about that at Shondaland. Like, just because we could do anything at Netflix, we're not going to do anything at Netflix. We want to do stuff that feels right for us, and we want to do stuff that feels creatively right. I literally only allow us to make shows that I want to watch. That's my only compass. I want to watch it. I would watch it even if nobody else did. Those are the shows we want to make. I don't want to make anything just because I could. I'm not going to make, like, I don't know, Dune, just because I can, because it's not me. It's not authentic to who we are as a company.
Excellent. And you were pivoting a little bit to, like, from representation to politics.
Mm-hmm.
You are obviously active politically before, and you know, for both of us, the person we wanted to win didn't win, and our country's going down the toilet. So, to that, Nikki Glaser, I don't know if you saw her at the Golden Globes, but she had this funny quote. She said, "You people in Hollywood are so powerful. You can do anything you want except tell people how to vote." Mm-hmm. And it really stung when I heard that. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
It's interesting. I don't think you can actually tell people anything. The minute, and you know, we all did it. I campaigned like crazy for Kamala Harris, and I went all over the country for it. But the reality of it is we can't tell anybody what to do or vote. The only thing we can do as creative people, as artists, is when I make a show, is show people a different reality than they may have for themselves. I always want our shows to be both a window and a mirror, you know, a window into a world that you don't know, and a mirror holding up so you can see yourself in those characters. And that's what does it. I mean, Grey's Anatomy, they did a study that more people felt more comfortable with gay marriage after they saw Callie in Arizona, which was very exciting to me and not something I expected. But we do know that when you see these people on screen and you get to know them and you spend time with them, it's what makes a difference.
No, absolutely. And we're in our business, we're in it for the long haul.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's so it's part. So to that end, what are you thinking about now? How has the re-election of Donald Trump, has that changed any of your calculus and things that you're thinking about and stories you want to tell?
That's another not very easy question. I think, like a lot of people, for a little while after the election, I put my head in the sand because I just couldn't take it anymore. You know, 92%, is it 92% of black women voted for Kamala Harris, and it felt very much to a lot of people as if that was, we'd done our job, and why can't people do theirs? Like, there was that moment of emotional feeling that I heard from a lot of people. And so for a little while, I sort of put my head down. But now when I think about it, I think there's more of a responsibility to tell the stories I like to tell the kind of stories I tell, to have words coming from characters that were coming out of my mouth than before, simply because there's going to be, or it feels like there's going to be, some sort of suppression of that at some level. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. And I'm not interested in being suppressed, and I'm not interested in suppressing anybody else.
Yeah, thank you for that. If you, in the documentary I made, King of the Wilderness, Marion Wright Edelman, who started the Children's Defense Fund, legendary, also one of the founders of SNCC, said that King would say to her, if you can't fly, you run. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl, but you keep moving forward.
Yes, I love that.
And it's hard to remember now, but we need to remember it more than ever.
I think so. I absolutely think so.
Let's talk about sort of where Shondaland is going and you know, the future.
Oh, wow. As people who watch my shows know, I would call that a spoiler, and I don't like to give spoilers. But for me, you know, we're really trying to expand. We've sort of evolved our leadership in our company, and we're really trying to expand in a way that feels like the stories we tell will be told forever, if that makes any sense. Like Shondaland doesn't disappear with Shonda. And so our goal really is to find stories that feel, that we're passionate about. Stories, I like to tell stories or like to see stories where I can't wait to see what happens next. And so we're trying really hard to do that, but also in genres that maybe we haven't done them in before.
Like horror? Any horror coming?
We're not doing any horror. That's Jordan Peele. But I can't say anything else because it's a spoiler.
Shondaland horror would be, I'm not even a horror fan, but I would go see, that should be so crazy, right?
It would be, wouldn't it? You might have given me an idea, I don't know.
Like Bridgerton with vampires kind of thing? Like,
I wouldn't mind that.
I'd watch it. So we talked a bit about, you know, this kind of responsibility. We have young people here in the audience too. In terms of, do you feel that in terms of representation of like positive representations of race, negative, or sexuality, these things, do you feel the weight of that, or do you feel that we're past that?
I definitely don't feel like we're past that. I mean, I think we're still at a place where, for some people, seeing a negative representation just reinforces what they've already believed. But for me, it really has to come down to, we're not gonna have equality until we can see a character of color, a character in a wheelchair, a gay character, be as mean and crazy and dark as the white characters get to be. Honestly, like I feel like people should get to be all dimensions. And in a lot of ways in stories, people are so busy not wanting to portray somebody in a negative light that they forget to portray them as human. So to me, it feels like it's very important to keep going, but to also remember that. Like, what you're searching for is not a positive representation, it's the humanity of a person.
Thank you so much. I think it's important. Yeah, I'd had friends that say, like, we know we made it when we can have like a mediocre black character, or, you know, just, you don't usually get that. Or I've seen some commercials where the person, the sort of the jerk in the commercial is the black person, and not the person that can do that has some kind of magical, or, you know, the heroine or hero of it.
You really
that's some progress, right?
I really do think it's progress in a crazy way. On Scandal, one of the things I loved was we had Cyrus Bean, who's a gay character, and he was the White House Chief of Staff at one point, then he became a criminal, then a lot of things. But he was awful, you know, and he was our gay character, and he was the worst. And I love that about him, because he was just human. Like, for him, he was a patriot, and he was doing what he thought patriots did, but we didn't make it so that just because he was a gay character, he was warm, or he was good, or we wanted him to feel like a three-dimensional human character. We did the same thing with Olivia Pope.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, you also know that, like, you know, people are, if they're obsessed, a mean person is more interesting than a nice person as well. A person was.
I mean, I think a three-dimensional person is most interesting, where they're mean and they're nice and they're all the things.
Right. Why does it mean nice? Usually, nice, you're repressing something, and there's like, you want to find out what's underneath that. If you're only nice.
You don't trust, that's interesting. No, I mean, I think for me, you know, one of the things that we were always told in the very beginning about my female characters were, can't they be nicer? Can't they be nicer? And I don't know how to write somebody who's just nice. You're right, it's a very one-dimensional aspect, and it's very false. Real people are not just nice. So it was fun to get to write people who are everything.
Yeah, I mean, I love nice characters, and when you see the other side of them, I don't know if you've seen a Complete Unknown, the Dylan documentary, or the Dylan film with Timothée Chalamet, but the Pete Seeger character, played by Ed Norton, he's amazing, and he's like the nicest guy in the world, he's super nice, but at the very end, when he can't take it, he picks up an axe and he's about to do something and not kill somebody, but stop Dylan from playing electric. And it's a great character moment, right?
That's amazing. Is that a spoiler?
It's not a spoiler. It's a very small part of the film, but
no, it is amazing to see that in a character and to be able to portray people in that way. I mean, the goal is truly to make things feel real. I mean, they're obviously hyper real. Nobody's running around in a corset, right now, and all those things. But it's really important to make the characters feel as real as possible because that's how you relate. And when people relate to somebody, they feel like they know them. And we talked about this before, but I guess I didn't talk about it with you guys, but on Grey's Anatomy, they did a thing where they talked about the fact that if you spent Thursday nights watching Grey's Anatomy for 8 years or even for a year, you generally spent more time with your friend Christina Yang than you did with the people in your actual life.
Wow.
The influence of that is huge. So you want people to feel like a lot of people felt like Christina Yang was their person, even though she's a character on television, because they had more concentrated emotional time with her than they did with actual people. And it feels like there's a responsibility there then to create people that people want to know, or that people can relate to, or that people learn from, without trying to teach them something. I always say if you can entertain people, you can teach them anything.
I agree, that's amazing. As I write a lot of comedies, I like to think while they're laughing, I kind of slip into the message down their throat before.
Yeah. But I think that's how it has to be. If you get them entertained and they're excited about what you're doing, they will follow you anywhere. And your responsibility is to make them follow you to a decent place. I think there's plenty of charismatic people who lead people into very dark places, as we know. But your responsibility is to make them go to a good place. And if you can do it with comedy, that's the most amazing thing. Because if you have people laughing and learning at the same time, you've really accomplished something.
Thank you. No, I agree with that. I'm learning a lot. Can you talk and I'll get to the questions from some students who are here in a second. But I want to ask you about sort of your process in terms of developing a TV show, writers' rooms. Like, has that evolved? Has TV changed for you in your time, or do you have like a sort of? You feel like you're a machine, or you feel like you're evolving?
No. Television's changed tremendously from the beginning. When I started, when it was just network television and a little bit of cable, to now, obviously, the medium has changed and exploded. So, by definition, the way we make television has exploded. But, when I started out, and I would say this, and I would say it like I was joking to my friends, they'd say, well, what do you want to do in television? I would say, I want to take over the world through television. I said it all the time, and people laughed. Except for my agent, who I always loved because he never laughed, because I meant it. I really did. And I felt like if I could figure out a way to do that in a good way, then I would be successful. Not truly take over the world, but you know what I mean.
But you have, so you've done it.
A little bit. But really, what that meant as you keep going is you can't keep doing things the exact same way you've always done them. I don't know how to do that. Every project is completely different. I want to keep learning every day. I don't want to be, one of the things that we would say about network television, we loved making it, but my producing partner, Betsy Beers, and I would say, we could solve these problems in our sleep. And going to streaming was really an opportunity to start to relearn a whole new way of doing things and to think of things differently. Every show I try to learn a ton, and every show I try to push myself to do something different.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I can think of your attitude of the megalomania you had of saying, I'm going to take over the world. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't be here, right? And I'm just saying that you wouldn't be sitting, you wouldn't have your nice life in Westport.
But now you've made it so my sister's going to call me a megalomaniac whenever she has the chance.
That's what sisters are for.
But no, I think it's true. I think you have to have a goal and be very determined to pursue it. I think that's for anything you believe in and anything you're doing. I try to approach things that way. I was telling the students earlier that if I was getting somebody coffee at the beginning of my career, I was getting them the best coffee they'd ever gotten, simply because I wanted to make sure that I was remembered. I wanted to make sure that I stood out as best I could. And so everything I did, I tried to approach with that attitude. And it's, then they asked me, were you born like that? Did you grow up like that? And I was like, no, I was a fairly lazy kid, but my parents had a work ethic that they really instilled in all of us, and it's been really important to me.
And I got to say, let's say, if a man walked around, Spielberg, let's say, I'm sure he didn't walk around and say, oh, I think I'm going to make a couple little movies, right?
Right.
He said, I'm going to take over the world.
Nobody thinks it's remarkable when a white man says he's going to succeed. It's fascinating because you don't have to, and it's just the way the world is. You don't have to have all the experience or all the credits in the world. But for instance, in movies, they give guys movies all the time who've done almost nothing. And like big blockbuster, huge movies. And Ava DuVernay had to fight like a dog to even get a job on a television show. That, to me, is the essence of the misogyny in Hollywood.
No, absolutely. Think about you or Oprah, people that come in with so many, just to invent yourself in a way to get to the place you get a place that didn't exist. There's no roadmap to get to where you are today.
And that's always an interesting thing. I always say, no one wants to be the first anything. People are always like, she's the first this. Nobody wants to be the first anything. I certainly don't want to be the first anything. Every time somebody mentions to me in Hollywood, oh, like you're the first this or you're the first that, I think that should make Hollywood ashamed of itself. Like, I shouldn't be the first. It doesn't make any sense. Right. But without a roadmap, you are sort of forced to forge your own path. You really are.
I forgot, I'd be remiss if I don't talk about the book of the Year of Yes. It's a fantastic book if you haven't read it yet, and or read it again because it's you can learn a lot from it.
It's 10 years old now. It's the 10th-year anniversary this year.
But it's very important. So can you talk about a little bit about that and how that changed, like the sort of impetus for that, and how that sort of changed you?
That changed my life in tremendous ways. The book really began because my oldest sister. I was telling her all the amazing things I'd been invited to do because I have this fancy show, Grays. I'd been invited to do this, invited to do that. And finally she said, are you gonna do any of those things? And I said, well, no. Because it never occurred to me that I would actually go and do all these things. I was like, I'm busy, I'm a mom. And she said, you never say yes to anything. And that really stuck with me. The idea that she was right, like my life was about consciously saying no to anything but my job. And so I started saying yes to things. I said yes to giving a commencement speech at Dartmouth, and I said yes to being on Jimmy Kimmel, and I went on the Mindy Kaling show, and I said yes to playing with my kids, which was really interesting, and something, I was so busy that I was always saying like, in a bit, in a bit, in a bit. And I realized that I just needed to start saying yes every time my children asked me to play. They only want to play with you for maybe 10 minutes, really. So them knowing that you were going to do it is more important than anything else. But it really changed my life. I would not have been up on the stage. I was terrified of public speaking. I broke out in a sweat if I had to do anything like this. I would have said no to this a million times. I would never have packed my bags and moved my children from LA to Westport. Like, those sorts of things felt adventurous, and I was not adventurous except in my head with my stories. So the book is really about that and about how saying yes changes your life.
And do you find yourself now when you're about to say no to something thinking, oh, I wrote the yes book, I have to say yes?
No, for a long time I was saying to people, I'm saying yes to saying no, But my sister, who's over there, who's not the person who told me I never say yes, but my sister who's over there said, just today, I was saying, like, I'm not gonna do that. And she goes, it would be really great because it would be another example of you saying yes. And it's like, I'm manipulated into it right there.
Yeah, sisters think that way.
They're good, they're good.
Excellent. Well, let me get to some questions here from these amazing students that came to visit.
Yeah, they're great. I got to talk to them earlier, and they're all so interesting and excited.
Well, this one is from Raisa Hassan. She says, is there a reason you moved to Connecticut, and how have you been liking it so far?
Oh, I moved to Connecticut because it was the middle of the pandemic. The schools were closed in Los Angeles. My daughter was not doing virtual school well at all. That was not working. And my oldest daughter said to me, do not raise my sisters here. She's 22, they're now 12 and 11. And I really had to take that to heart. She said, I don't feel seen here. I never felt beautiful here. this is not a place for me. And also, it was a town in which what your mother did mattered. And I wanted to move to a place that felt like where I grew up, where it wasn't about what your parents did, it was about who you were as a kid. The town was focused on families. And I literally found this place almost by accident and loved it and thought, like, yeah, this is gonna be the place I stay.
Oh, amazing. She wants to add a P.S. I held a Bridgerton-themed picnic with friends at Elizabeth Rose Garden in the Hartford, Connecticut. It's really beautiful. You'd like it, so you should check it out.
Oh, thank you.
This is anonymous. What has been the most surprising reactions to one of your storylines in Bridgerton?
Surprising reactions to one of my storylines in Bridgerton. I don't know, I'm always amazed when people get as invested as they are. I mean, I know that it happens, but when we do any small thing that the audience doesn't like, or they don't even necessarily know what's coming out, a lot of the big surprising reactions we get are to trailers. So before the season comes out, we put out a trailer, and then I hear 1,000 times, like, you're doing this with a character and we hate that, or I'm never watching this show again. And they always watch again because you want to see what's going to happen. And I say that with the utmost respect for fans. But it is interesting, like, the reactions that we get are always really strong in either direction, no matter what story we're telling or what we're doing.
Is that an issue with, I don't know, like message boards and sort of rumor mills and stuff? Is that like, do you have to control that at all?
Well, we don't control it at all. I mean, it definitely is an issue, and I think it's definitely big. People have really big feelings about the shows that they love, and there's a whole world online dedicated to basically that idea. So to me, that's not controllable. Like, people need to be able to think what they're gonna think. They need to be able to debate what they're gonna debate, and you have to respect that.
Absolutely, great. What was one of the greatest challenges you ever faced, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Wow. I'm trying to figure out, like, the greatest
Take your time. I'm just seeing them for the first time. I know that's a big
Yeah,
one.
it's a big question. And one of the reasons why it's a big question, and I think I also said this to you guys already, is that I was raised to think of obstacles and roadblocks and people saying no to me, not as true obstacles, but as hills that needed to be climbed. So it never occurred to me when I came up against somebody who said I couldn't do what I was supposed to do, that they were right. It simply made me feel like I had to find another way around. And so for me, that's sort of been the way I approach things. So whenever anybody asks me about obstacles or terrible things that happen, I have a really hard time coming up with them. It's not that they didn't happen to me, it's that I just responded in a very different way. It's hard to make me feel like I can't do something. And I think that that's really a testament to how I grew up and how I approached the world, really. Nobody else can tell you who to be. You know, a lot of people will have opinions on you based on just what you look like or who you are, but the reality of it is only you can tell you who you are.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope that helped.
No, I think that's amazing. I think about, James Brown says, I don't want nobody telling me nothing, open up the door, I'll kick it down myself, right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of, black parents of a certain age too also like instill that into their kids, knowing that it's a hard, no one's gonna, you're not gonna have this crystal stair of a life.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's very true. I think, my parents tried to instill it in me. We try to instill it in our kids. The world is not as difficult as it was necessarily, but I still try to instill in them the sense that who they are is up to them and not up to other people.
Excellent. What project, it's gonna be hard. What project are you most proud of and why?
That's not hard at all.
Oh.
The project I'm most proud of is Queen Charlotte.
Oh.
Not because I feel like it's better or than the other ones. I love all my children equally, but it is the project where I plumbed the depths of something that I hadn't really gotten into before, where I told a story of a woman in power in a really interesting way. And I was really proud of the work that I did on it and really proud of how it came out. And I remember when it came out, I did an interview and somebody said, like, how do you feel? And I said, if this is the last project I ever do, I will be completely happy. And it was this sense of contentment of really loving what I did and feeling really proud of what the crew and the cast and the directors created.
That's amazing. That's a great place to be. I was thinking when people, if I'm not doing my own projects, someone comes to me with it, I just think, were I to be hit by a bus right after I said yes, would that be, you know, and he's working on Snow Dogs 5, you know, the musical or something. It's like, you know, would you do it for free? I always think at this point, would I do it for free?
Yes, there's the would you do it for free thing. Although very early on in my career, somebody turned to me and said, never say that out loud again. Because I was like, they built me a hospital and these actors are playing doctors and I wouldn't do this for no money. And they were like, please never say that. Always put a price on it, I suppose. But yeah, you have to really love what you're doing and be passionate about it. And I learned that also because, you know, my shows on ABC went for a long time. So you don't make something that you don't love because you might end up still doing it. I mean, it's season 21 of Grey's. Yeah, you end up doing it for a really long time, so you better love it.
Yeah, and people understand that also it's not about money. It's also your reputation, how you feel in your soul when you're doing this work.
I agree. I don't think it's about the money at all. I often try to make it about the money for people because women are still not paid equally. And I want to make sure that women know that that is a possibility for them and that is something they should be fighting against. We talk about that a lot. People of color are not paid equally. But it's not. You have to love something enough that you would do it even if nobody was paying you. Like I used to say, I'll make shows in my basement on my iPhone if nobody paid me. And that has to be reason enough to do something. If you don't have that passion or that drive to do it that way, you know, I always think of the civil rights movement. You know, people were like, I will put my life on the line for this. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to be able to make a difference.
And I think as artists, the passion comes, you can't fake that. So when people, let's say, talk about, let's say someone like whose work I don't respect as much as Tyler Perry, let's say. He's super successful. He's super, super successful. I don't, I'm me, Spike Lee, a lot of people will say, I don't like his work as much, but I know that he loves what he does, and I know that people love what he does completely, right? So the imitators, you know what I mean? I'm saying that people imitate something because they think, oh, that's a way to make some money. It doesn't come through. I think you have to really be pure to the art that you're trying to tell, the stories you're trying to tell. And he's trying to tell the stories he wants to tell, and he does them. You know,
I think Tyler loves the stories that he tells, and he's incredibly proud of the way he tells them, and he has an audience that is waiting for them.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's important, but you can't go out and imitate. It doesn't work. You know, there's a million examples of how just imitating somebody else doesn't work. You have to be authentic to yourself. Never, kids say like, oh, I wanna be just like you. And I'm like, no, you wanna be just like you. Because the only way you're gonna get somewhere and the only way you're gonna really feel fulfilled is if you're being authentically you. And I used to hate when people said authentically you, but the reality of it is it's true. That sort of feeling of knowing that you're authentically yourself, doing what you would do, not because anybody else told you to, but because it's what you're passionate about, is enormous and really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell my students and my kids, it's like your special sauce is yourself, right? All you got is your special sauce. The irreplaceability of yourself and your soul. That's where you can bring in, not the research you've done or the thing you discovered you think no one knows about. It's really just, the only thing is your individuality.
Yes, I agree.
Did you ever, at a point in your career, that felt that you failed?
No. And I don't mean that in the arrogant, like I don't feel like I failed, because failure suggests somehow that you've done something terribly wrong or that you've really messed up. To me, every time we've failed at anything, it's really just been a lesson in doing something else. You know, in my book, I do talk about the fact that, you know, as a career person, as a career mother, every time you're succeeding at one thing, you are failing at another, simply because it's so hard to have this big job and to be a mom at the same time. You know, you're at your daughter's science fair, and that means that you're missing Christina Yang's, Sandra Oh's last day on set at Grey's Anatomy. Those things happen because you're succeeding at one or you're failing at another. It's a trade-off, and that's okay. Like, I want the idea of failure to feel okay, because you can't do everything, number one. But number two, most of the failures are things that you can learn from. If you can't pick something out and learn from the failure, then you're not looking at the failure correctly.
I think that's really important to remember. Like, if again, so the hit by a bus. If you fail and you're hit by a bus, that's bad, right? Because you failed and you haven't learned from it. But otherwise, it's not. Otherwise, you're going to go on and do other things. You're going to learn from it, and you're going to look back and think, that was an inflection point that I needed at the moment.
You feel really strongly about people getting hit by buses.
I do. I take the bus a lot. I'm not just. I'm a big mass transit kind of person. The other thing, just an aside about the writing process you talked about, which I think is interesting. You talk about about running and writing, how you have to run a little bit. Can you talk?
Yes. Oh, so I always think about the creative process as like a long hallway, like an extremely long hallway. And at the end of that hallway, there is a door. And inside that door, there is writing. There's like actual, I have the creative spirit, I'm writing. But you have to get to that door. And on the way to that door, as you're jogging there, huffing and puffing, there are there's burgers and fried chicken and Dateline and HGTV and shopping and talking to your friends online and Instagram and all these other things that you have to race past to get to that door. And in a lot of ways, the more you run that race and get to the door, the faster you become. It's like a muscle. So sooner or later, you're sprinting past all those things and just opening the door. But you have to really make it a practice in order to do that. You have to overcome all of the things that are going to distract you and also jump to the place where you're in a creative space as soon as you can. And that's what keeps you from, there would be days when I would sit at my computer and think like, I don't have anything to say, so maybe I'll get up and, oh, look, that TV show is on. Maybe I'll binge watch this. And the reality of it is you have to stay. I always say, like, all you have to write is, like, one page or one scene, or even just half a scene, so you can say that you wrote today. So for me, it's all about, like, being in a place where you can say, I wrote today. Because nobody likes having to write. Everybody likes having written. Like, the done part is the best part.
Yeah, I find that very inspirational. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that term. Great. Who would you credit in your childhood of teaching you to have the work ethic, take charge capability, and strong backbone that you have?
So I feel like I've said this a lot, and maybe they need an award or something, but my parents, they are very much those people. My parents were always very strong, and I feel like a lot of the things that would have been obstacles, they took care of before I got there, so that I knew that I could succeed at things. They were very encouraging. They there were 6 of us. My parents let us all be our own people. And they made it very simple for me. Like, I always wish I could say there was a formula, but really the formula was that my parents were smart, driven people who loved us. And that really made a difference in our lives, I think. And it makes a difference for a lot of people. But my parents were also people who absolutely believed that they could do anything that they set their minds to, that nobody was going to tell them that there was something they couldn't accomplish. And I think that part of it just is an example that is being set that you can't help but want to repeat or emulate.
Great. This is Christian Ashong. What inspired you to create the amazing show Grey's Anatomy?
Oh, wow. I had been obsessed with medical shows, and back then medical shows were like, there was a channel called TLC where they just showed you surgeries. Do you remember that? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. They'd show you surgeries, and they'd do things like remove a tumor, and my sisters and I would watch them together, and we'd call each other, and I'm like, do you see what's happening? And so when I set out to try to write a television show, and I really said, like, I want to do a television show. I'd had a baby, and I was at home, and I realized that all the character development was happening on TV, not in the movies, the way I'd hoped it would. And so I thought, I'm gonna write a show, and then the first year I tried to write a show, it was a war correspondence show. So it was a show about journalists at war. And we were at war, and it felt really in poor taste, and nobody wanted to make it. And I thought, okay, well, what does Bob Iger, who was running ABC at the time, what does Bob Iger want to see? And somebody said to me, he really wants a medical show. And I was like, I love surgeries, I can do this. And so I started writing the show, and I just got really into it. I met a bunch of interns and talked to them about what their lives were like. I loved hearing about all the stuff that made surgery, and made those programs, and that's what really inspired me.
That's amazing. And my sister is a surgeon, and she loves your shows, I gotta say.
I always take that as a compliment when a doctor loves our shows.
What was the most difficult and easy thing you did to get where you are right now?
Get where I am right now. Gosh, you guys ask really good questions. I think the most difficult thing I had to do was to accept the idea that not everybody was going to be on board with who I am or what I want to do. You know, haters going to hate, yeah, but the reality of it is there's always people who are not happy for you. And that's not a bad thing. People are not rooting for you. People don't look at you and think like, that's the person. And it's really important to sort of accept that idea and not let it sort of invade you. I mean, that pervasive idea goes from everything to a teacher who doesn't believe in you, to a doctor who doesn't believe what you say as a patient, to all kinds of things. It's really about accepting the idea that maybe some people don't agree, but that doesn't make you wrong.
It gives you the choice to rise up and use them, like in your list of reasons, fuel to move forward and to prove them wrong.
I never think about it as proving anybody wrong as much as it's not letting them dent any of the confidence that I have. Not letting, and we all have the right to be confident in ourselves. You don't have to be a television creator or whatever to feel like, oh, I'm special. Everybody is special. And there's always going to be somebody who's trying to tell you that you're not. And to me, it's vital, truly vital, to never worry about what somebody else thinks about you. What other people think about you is none of your business. Dolly Parton said that, I think. But I think it's important.
Right. And you have no control over it either. You don't control how they see you.
You can never control how somebody else sees you. You can only control how you see the world.
It's amazing. Those were all the questions from the students. I'd like to ask, what else would you like to talk about or say to
oh, wow.
wonderful people here?
It is Martin Luther King Day, and I have some really, really huge shoes to fill because last year it was Clarence talking, and he wrote half of the I Have a Dream speech. So, not the same. But what I really want to say is that what I feel like I learned from last year and what I try to continue to learn and try to continue to teach my children is there's always a moment where you can make the world a better place. Always. If it's simply making somebody's day, it's making somebody's day. If it's making somebody feel included, it's including somebody. It's reaching out to somebody who maybe doesn't seem like anybody's reaching out to them. Those are the small ways you can do it. You can do bigger things. You can go on marches. You can be an activist. There are a million ways to make the world a better place. And your goal should be to look back at yourself and think, what did I do this month to make the world a better place? Like, did I do anything to make the world a better place? Because if you didn't, what are you doing? Really, what are you doing? It feels like you want a better world for your children, you want a better world for your friends, you want a better world for the people who raised you. So what are you doing to make the world a better place? That's the only thing I always try to think about on Martin Luther King Day.
Well, I can't think of a better way to close this out, and just thank you so much for coming. You've made this day a better place, and I think your work is pushing us in a better direction. I really thank you for that.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. And I want to thank the students, because it's wonderful that you guys came.
Thank you all for coming.
Let's have another hand for Shonda Rhimes. We are so lucky to have her here. And Trey. So Trey and I are gonna do a similar thing tomorrow night. We're going to be showing King in the Wilderness at the Westport Country Playhouse at 7 o'clock. And we would invite anyone here who wants to come over to see that. Then we're going to do a talk back afterwards. And I look forward to finding out about all this bus stuff and everything that Trey's got going on. Love it, man. I just wanted to say a couple of words about No Place for Hate, which is going on in our schools. Just a little bit more about it. It's a program that is being implemented in Westport in all 8 schools at one time. So far as we know, in the state of Connecticut, no other school system has tried to do all of them at one time. They'll do one, and then another over time. So it's a bold thing to do. And what's it about? It's about a number of student-led initiatives and commitments that take place. What are the commitments that we're talking about? At the core of it, the Sesame Street version of the commitments are treating everyone with fairness and respect and saying, I'll do that personally. I will be an ally to help people who are hurt or being bullied. And if I can't help them, I'll go see someone, an adult who I trust, to do that. And I'm gonna, in all things that I do, help others feel safe and respected. And so what we, with those commitments, what then happens? Well, there are organizations in each school put together, run by students with some guidance from the faculty, of course. And those students are putting together their proposals for approaching those commitments by looking at first identity, and then issues around bias, and then an initiative around bullying. So when you do that, that means there are going to be 24 different initiatives that'll take place across the school systems. Our purpose in supporting this is to stay out of the way of the kids, stay out of the way of the administrators, let them get this off the ground, let them get it going, but to be there to provide whatever support that they need. Another piece from a community point of view is that so far as we know also across the state and the country, there has not been a community component that's been put together for this programming. And we're going to try to pioneer this here in Westport. It'll take a little time because we want to let the kids and the teachers get a groove swing as to how this is working. But over time, we're going to be back to you to create some of those opportunities to get involved and to make the world a better place, which we just heard about. And that's going to be our focus. Do we have a next slide? There it is. Okay, so what we're looking for today, and we're going to be back to you in the future, this coalition that we talked about who brought you this event, we are asking if you would like to contribute financially to our getting that done, for programming that we're going to do, for speakers we're going to get, for awareness we're going to provide to parents, citizens, and others here in town around identity, around bias, and around bullying, because this is not going to just go on for this year, it's going to go on for some years in the schools. We offer you the opportunity to contribute. Feel free to pull out your iPhones and take a picture of the QR code if you'd like to be so inclined. And so we're going to say, we'll be back to you with more as we know more about what the kids need, but we're saying now we want to move forward in at least our plans to make this happen. Okay. Jennifer, Jen, are we ready? Yes. Okay. Once again, I'm sure you could hear by his first performance, Christian is a phenomenal talent. And we've got him here again to perform for us, but I'm going to mention that we also plan to have him tomorrow night at the Playhouse. So that's another inducement. And now, the phenomenal Mr. Severance.
Just because it's Sunday, just turn to the person next to you, tell them better days are coming. Just tell them better days is coming. And better days are here, you know? Gotta encourage ourselves. Yes.
Sometimes it feels cold and you feel all alone, but hold on, better days are coming. And it gets real rough in this world. But just remember that better days are coming. You've seen good, you've seen bad, you've been happy instead. But just remember that better days are coming. And friends, they may leave you all by yourself, but don't you cry, 'cause better days are coming. And if you know it, you can help me say, go ahead and say better, better days. You know it. Better days. Say better days are coming.
And this next part ain't for everybody, but it's for somebody, you know. 'Cause it says it's only your season. For you're going through. But we've gotta stay focused, and never lose sight. The last part says, I know people, they don't always see the hurt you feel inside. But you gotta keep on smiling, 'cause everything will be alright. Somebody help me say better, better days, better days, better days. I feel them, they're on their way. You just gotta keep your head up and look forward. Praise him, yeah. Better days. Oh, better days, better days, better days are coming. Yeah. If you look to the hills, from which cometh your help, all your help, it comes from the Lord. Whether you believe or not, better days are right here soon. Yeah. I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Y'all? Yeah. Thank you.